Hello, it's 4:20. Let's get high. Oh, I really like that Durham poison. Anyways, I wanted to comment on someone's comment. Someone wrote in, thank you very much for taking the time to write in. And, thanked me for the information, said that it helped him connect the dots. And I thought, I should say that that's actually, what I'm trying to do. Just share the information so that people can connect the dots in whatever way they wish to connect the dots, because that's really what the Jewish people are supposed to do. We're not supposed to rule over anyone, tell people what to do. Even within our own people, we're not supposed to tell people what to do. We have heads, which these days are the rabbis, but the rabbis have no power over the people. I mean, only the power that the people give to them. If the people give them the power, then you have to do, what the rabbis say. But there's nothing that that forces the person to accept the authority of the rabbis, because, what the rabbis have is an opinion. And they can also dictate law, but only, the law that they dictate is rabbinic law, which means that this law is only incumbent upon the rabbis, upon other rabbis. So if the rabbis make the law like this, then they have to do it. For example, that when the temple was destroyed 2,000 years ago, rabbis of that time, did not smile anymore. There's a story that once there was people went on and got married, whatever, and there was a chasana, it was a wedding, and the people saw that the rabbis were having too much fun. So they went over and broke a glass in front of them. The rabbis, they're very, careful about everything that's worth anything. And when they saw something that was worth something being broken, it made them very sad. And that's how they got the rabbis to recognize that they were having too much fun. And that's actually where, the custom of breaking a glass at the end of a marriage comes from, that should be the even though it's a great happy time getting married, what could be happier? But you should remember that we're not that happy, because we don't know the temple is still is still destroyed. And also, when the rabbi has made a law that when you paint a house, paint the interior of the house, you'd always leave a piece of the house unpainted, to remember that it's not complete until, we have the third temple, comes down from the heavens, is indestructible. That's the prophecy for the future. But right now, we're all living in huge amounts of darkness. And besides the darkness, the agenda, whatever they're trying to do, something that they wouldn't normally do. Like even just to the point of buying something, instead of trying to cater truly to people's needs, we try to get them addicted. And, certain addictions like cigarettes, after decades, It's been known that this is cancerous for, close to 100 years. But it took years and years before they could finally even put a message on the cigarette label. So important is the freedom of speech of companies that are trying to rip the people off by addicting them to different substances. And, when TV is no different, with the whole thing, they're trying to get people, to watch as long as possible, because then you can get the most money for your advertising and doing different things to try to manipulate people into doing and watching things that aren't really for their best interest. And that goes into the spiritual world also, in the sense that people who hold a spiritual tradition want to keep it to themselves and don't want to share it with other people because they consider it some sort of an advantage that they hold, over other people, that, their people have a secret and they're not going to share it with anybody else. And certainly the Jewish people, because of the rabbis have led us to this, have made law after law that restraining us from teaching the people of the world the Torah. And as a result of that, there are things said in the name of the Torah which are just blasphemous, just terrible, and the rabbis never respond. What do they do instead? That we look inside. They look inside. In other words, they make themselves the center. And everything's supposed to revolve around the rabbi. So it ends up, a Jewish community, particularly the religious ones, even the non-religious ones, conservative, reform, they're kind of based around the rabbi. So it ends up everyone is looking inwards. And this is the opposite of what God wanted from the Jewish people, that we know, because the temple was erected with windows that were very large inside and funneled, convex. I'm not sure what, but they funneled inward, which is counterintuitive, because the way people brought light into buildings in those times, in the daytime, that they would have large openings on the outside that will funnel in, that would naturally magnify the light that would come into the room and light up the room. Very smart. Why did it do the opposite in the temple? Because the whole idea of the temple was to radiate light out into the world. And but since the Jewish people, the thing that caused the destruction of the temple was that the Jewish people got to the point 2,000 years ago we hated each other for no reason. Sometimes there's a reason we hate people, But, we're just human beings, and we have that emotion, and we need to recognize it. We can't just say, "No, I don't hate anyone." There are people that we hate. We hate them. I was on this bus, a few months ago, and I got off. I was confused where I was. The guy helped me to know, so we started talking. We got off the bus, and within a minute or two, he said, "If I saw Donald Trump walking up that street, I'd go kill him. I don't care what they do to me, nothing." They're and I think we all, besides carrying biases, which we do, we also carry hatreds. But at least a person can say, "I hate this person because," and we can go, "All right, it's not good to hate a person, but if we do, and we have to recognize we do, and understand why it is we hate this person." Could even be people's, if a certain, people hurt your people, then, all this stuff is reasonable. It's not good, but we understand it. We're human beings. We understand it. We're fallible. We're not perfect. We understand it. But to hate someone for no reason, just look at some dude, man, I hate you, man. I just hate you. Why? I don't know, man. I don't need a reason why. I just hate you. So there's a lot of that going on in Israel. So God said, you got to leave. I don't want you here on the Holy Land, because this is the Holy Land, and we love on the Holy Land. We don't hate, particularly for no reason. So what did God do? God always punishes in a way that will help the person repent. So God sent us all out to all corners of the world. First of all, so when we met another Jewish person, we go, oh, I love you. I'm living out here. There's no one Jewish, but someone Jewish. Oh, I love you just because you're Jewish. So that's called avas pinom, free love. Don't love the person for any other reason, that there's a connection to you. There's like a familiarity to you, and the way maybe you speak, or the jokes that are funny, or there's all sorts of things that when you're deprived of that, you realize how important it was. So that's one of the ways that got the Jewish people to do, to repent. And the other is that, to remind us that the reason that the temple was there was to radiate light into the world. And since we didn't do it, there was too much strife going on in Israel, and the temple just couldn't do it. So each was sent out to be a light to the nations. It says in the Torah, that's where we're meant to be, a light to the nations. And it doesn't mean that we're, because we're smart. Jewish people generally are smart because they're spent thousands of years studying Torah, and Torah really stretches the mind. It's unbelievable. These things get passed on, and there are just families of geniuses. And some people took that out of Torah and went into the world and became great lawyers or thinkers or whatever. And it was and this kind of Jewish knowledge, came into the world kind of by osmosis. But really what we're supposed to do is we're supposed to go into the world, live as a Jewish person, and be a light to the world. And when people have questions or say things that don't make any sense, that we're supposed to correct them. We're supposed to help them understand what is right, and what is true, and let them take the truth and make what they want from it. And so this is Torah. Torah emes. This is Torah, means teaching. These are the teachings of truth, and that's what we're supposed to put out into the world. And even though the Zohar, which the Zohar is the deepest of all books. Nothing's deeper than the Zohar. And the Zohar, like, many secretive books, warn against making this knowledge known to the world, because people will inevitably use it for bad. However, the Zohar says, when the world is falling down, teach everything, don't hold back. And certainly the world is falling down. There's no question about that, from the, the lead melting into the, the metal melting into the skies from all the shit we sent up there, and breaking down into particulates and combining, with the mist and turning into rain and raining down on our soil, and we're drinking it, and we're eating it. It's going into the plants. So all this stuff we sent up there, is all coming down, and we're eating it. This is our reward, our punishment. And the thing is that I was thinking about this today. See, that one of the things it says right in the beginning of the Ten Commandments, the beginning of the Ten Commandments is, and it's interesting, the first law of all, the 613 commandments, the first commandment that is, when you're numbering them, from the Rambam, 1,000 years ago, and he made the book Yad Chazaka, Strong Arm, that had 14 different books going through all 613 commandments, the positive ones and the negative ones, and they start with the first one, to know God. So the question is, it's so hard to even know one another, even to know yourself. How is a person going to know God? And that's the first commandment. And so God gives us a little help in the in the first of the 10 commandments. It says, put no other God before me. And this is a very strange thing to say. I mean, here it's all based upon there's one God. Who are these other gods? So there's a very simple way to explain this and to know who the other gods are. That whenever a person says, hey, that's God, they're right, it's God. It's the other God. Anything anyone can point to, from something physical to something spiritual to some idea, whatever it is, it's other gods. Because God, the Creator, has no form, is not physical, is not spiritual, and so there is nothing in creation in any way that is like the Creator. And people might think, all right, the Creator is, so beyond creation that created creation and just, it's a big hodgepodge of whatever, and God doesn't really care. All right, maybe God put it all into action, but and things happen and God doesn't care. And if anyone cares, it would be maybe the angels. The angels were left to take care of us. So this is kind of what's natural to the human being to think. And Avram came to the world 4,000 years ago and taught us that that God did not go anywhere. That God not only created the world, but creates the world moment by moment and has a plan for the future. We're not just going off into infinity, into atrophy, into a meaningless existence, but rather God is so interested in us because God, the genesis of creation is God's desire to be known in low. And we are so low that we don't even, many people don't even recognize the Creator is here. Even after, 4,000 years of talking about this, they've made, one God into the biggest God, which is that only goes for the other gods. A God is not comparable to creation, not the gods of creation or angels. None of this is compared to God. They're comparable to the names of God, the Yud-He Vav-He, the Elohim. There are names that creation is sculpted out of, but the Creator, no way. So we're all in this together, and it's important that we should share our knowledge with one another. I mean, we see, because the world has become interconnected, and with all the good things that we can attribute to that, there's all these, bad things that can happen. And one of them is spinning the world too quick and, making everything heat up and having, because we're so connected, coming up with new diseases that suddenly go around the world. And the only way we can really protect against this is to cooperate. They used to think, it used to be this thing, at least when I was growing up, that the Darwinian theory of what is it, that the most powerful, it's a way to say it, like the weak succumb to the powerful. I can't remember like the phrase they would use. But the one that's the most powerful, that's the one that survives. Survival of the fittest. There you go. The most fittest is the one that survives, and the weak ones die. Could you see it like in animals, that weak animals are like killed off by their own kind, so as not to put that energy, that DNA into the general population, and weaken the population, just get rid of the weak ones. Of course, we're human beings, and we don't do that because we recognize that God is truly elevated by every human being, even the ones we look at and say, what could that guy possibly give? But we don't know from God's side. God created that person and is knowing creation in a low way through that person. And so it's important, people say like a namaste. A namaste means that I respect, the godliness in you. It is the same godliness in me. That we all are created from the same God, and that we are all equal in our uniqueness. And no one knows who gives God the greatest pleasure. It could be someone we really admire on the earth who is just obviously like great, like Bob Dylan. He's just great, but yeah, and I'm sure that, God agrees. It says that when a person, makes many people happy, that is a sign that God is happy with that person. Nonetheless, there might be someone out there that nobody knows, that for whatever reason, God even happier than someone else is great. And it's sort of like an iceberg where you see just a small part of it. And so we see, the great people we see in the world, we can look at it and really admire and say, well, that person's just really great. Not just great in, their work that they do, but great as they're great at being great. They don't let it go to their heads. They don't become an egomaniac. Because, everyone can say, I'd like to be great, but no one knows how they're going to respond when suddenly they're great and everyone's running after them. And what are they going to do? Maybe they won't respond in a very nice way. It says, there's a saying, better a poor man than a liar. Because poor people always say, oh, if I had money, I would do this, I would do that. And God says, better a poor man than a liar. Because if I give you the money, you're probably not going to do that. Once you get hold of the money, you'll find reasons why I shouldn't do that. And so God says, better stay a poor man, because there at least you can be real, than to be rich and be a liar. So, it's important that we should all sort of recognize the reality that God gives to us. Some of us, know how to work at something that's really important and make a lot of money that way. And some people maybe inherit their money, or there's all different ways that people have money. But, it shouldn't be that, that's the main thing in life, try to get a lot of money. You should be able to recognize it. I wasn't born with money. I don't have money, but I can get by. The world should support people getting by. In our time now, they're trying to squeeze everyone to go do work that they don't like doing, and it doesn't pay enough. And everyone's freaking out. How do we force these people back to work? Well, we're not slaves. We don't want to be forced back to work. We want to do a work that gives us satisfaction. Even, in Torah law, one of the things, a large, part of the Torah talks about having slaves. And there's many laws about having slaves. It's basically like working for a corporation. You have to dress the way they tell you. You have to work when they tell you, to work. They can't tell you to do work that's not your work. You're not going to get enjoyment from it. They can't tell you to do a work that's just going to go on forever. You won't get enjoyment from that. And they have to take care of your family and take care of all your costs and a place to live, and that was considered slavery. And but in our time, it's just press a person till they just got to go and do it, and they don't get anything. They don't get enough money. They don't get any benefits. They get nothing. And how'd you do it? Because the government squeezed you. And that's bullshit, man. That's our government. We don't want the government squeezing us. We want the government hugging us, saying things are all right, man. You need a place to live. Here's a place to live. You need to give your life together. Well, a lot of the ways that people get their life together, the government always wants to, funnel everyone into some sort of institution because that's how they make money. But the truth is, man, if you give people just enough time, and a lot of people, I think, are on the streets because of the socialization. And because they're out there and there's other people that they can talk to, they can relate to, and some people don't want to be in a house by themselves. It drives them nuts. And we have to be able to recognize there are people like that. I was living in Israel in the 80s when Russians started flooding into Israel. And so people started raising rents. People owned property, they raised the rents because the government was paying, and so it meant people who were living there before suddenly they had really high rents. So I remember there was one group of people in I forget where I know where I can print the name, Carmel. That people just said, we had enough of this. We're going to go live out on the grass. And the government said, it's a great idea. They'll open up like a lot of places. And they came and they brought potty toilets and they bought, a whole infrastructure so people could live like that. You don't have to pay rent. You can save your money and go buy a house. That's the government that's helping the people, not a government that turns their back on the people. And so we're really at a time, and you listen, I listen to the news, and people are thought that things would we'd really had overcome this kind of swell of it's really held over from the Civil War, from the Revolution, from the times people first came here. These same people are trying to hold on to power. And they see that America has become a real immigrant state, and there's no particular country or creed that should stand for America. And these guys are afraid because they know that their particular creed can't even stand up to the smallest kind of scrutiny. And they are fighting so much because they know when it's over, it's over. And that's it. There'll be no coming back from this. So they're like someone fighting for their death. But the truth is, this all happened around the number 777. And the 777 is rest, and 777 is the angel of death. Rest in the angel of death. It all shows that it's over. And the next 220 years before the 1,000 years of woman is obviously a time of making, a really renewal, making things really new, really better. And we need to start, we are starting to do that because things will never go back to the way they were. And we need to be out in front of us, the people with compassion and understanding to help guide us in the proper way. So some greedy prick down in Moco Loco doesn't suddenly, grab the reins and start, taking us in a different direction. That's what, it's what's been happening for years now, is who was going to pull the reins. Anyways, have a wonderful week, a wonderful Shabbat, the seventh day of the week, the day of rest. And God willing, I'll see you on the other side. Please go to my website, dovidhouse.com, where you can purchase a book or take a course and read my stuff, or just, whatever. Bye.